Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Entry Point Hunting Podcast. I am your host, Justina Lee Stoltz. And today I am looking forward to chatting with the founders and head operators of the Feathered Fletch Archery School, which is, as it says, an archery school with a passion for teaching kids and adults the proper techniques for using archery equipment, whether that's for recreational purposes or to actually hunt for food. Victoria and JD also run a full-time education system called We Think Outside, which is an amazing place to send kids who need a more diverse learning environment and hands-on experiences. These two humans come with a colorful background of education and experiences, from business and management to early childhood education to a laundry list of teaching certifications and qualifications for the school-aged education that they run, as well as the archery training programs that they offer. But it's not all business with these two. They also love to partake in corporate retreats and birthdays or social parties, really anything that builds community. Sustainable and ethical bow hunting is a passion for both of them. So they also make an effort to host mini bow hunting workshops and co-host bigger bow hunting retreats. Without further ado, welcome JD and Victoria.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going, you guys?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. I'm excited to chat all things archery and bow hunting and all of the education stuff that you guys teach, because there's a lot. So I kind of wanted to start with We Think Outside and ask you guys to share a bit about what that is, how you started it, and who are you serving? Who's your demographic?
Yeah, for sure. So it's an alternative education program, alternative to the public system or the private system. So we're a bit of a melange of outdoor education and homeschool pod type thing. I was a teacher in the private sector and looking for ways to teach outdoors and teach real life skills in meaningful ways. And I wasn't really finding that there was a lot of programs out there as like full on as I wanted to be. I didn't really feel comfortable sending him out into a classroom while I was in a different classroom teaching other children. It just seemed like a disconnect. So I started considering homeschooling, but he's an only child. And so I thought that the social side of things seemed almost overwhelming, trying to find enough social interaction and opportunities for children. So kind of started considering whether I could just teach some of his friends. And it's now turned into a six program tiered wow. with multiple different programs within programs, and we teach on average about 100 kids a week, and some of them are full-time, so that's their complete education, and some of them are part-time, so it's supplementary to something else that they're doing, whether that's homeschooling or going to a public school and skipping a day, or some kind of version of that, whatever's working for their family. And
man, I wish that had been an option when I was a kid. I would have loved to have skipped conventional school to go to like an outdoor education school.
Well, right. And that's kind of what we're finding, is that the more people that are introduced to the way we're doing it, the more not only do the kids love it, and the ones who don't get to come full time are always like, you mean there's kids that get to do this every day? And then their parents are saying the exact same thing you just said, where it's like, I wish I could have learned this way, or can you do this for us? Because they want to learn more, and they want to learn, survival skills and skills that are kind of starting to be lost because they're not being transferred down from generation to generation anymore.
And just being comfortable and capable in the outdoors is what a lot of people are really kind of seeking. A lot of adults that we're running into now are just like, well, can we like it's daunting to take that first step and be outside if you haven't been camper or haven't been, some kids that were even Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts as a child, they're now adults and they've like lost that feeling like they could do it. And so,
yeah, the confidence to know what to do in a different environment than a city urban setting.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you guys said you teach up to 100 kids per week. So, I mean, is that just the two of you? Like you got 50 kids each that you're managing, or has the school evolved into?
Yeah, so that's in 6 different programs. So there's our full-time program, which is only 12 kids, which is one of the big offerings of this program, is that it is a small class, because you're looking at upwards of 32 kids in some of these public classrooms right now. And there's no way all their needs are being met. And so small class sizes are super important to us. So those are the only kids that come every day. The other programs, some run alongside that. So we have a Big Buddy program that offers scaffolding for our older children to be mentored, and other faces for all the other kids that come. And so there's about 10 in that program. Then we have 3 other programs that run separately from that. And so we're calling those our forest schools. And those run 1 day a week. So we have 3 different staff members in different communities helping us out with that. So one of us goes to the forest school and one of us goes to our full-time core crew. Well, we have an assistant or a second teacher helping us out in those other locations. And so on Mondays, we offer this to the Kelowna crew, and we have 20 in that group. And then Wednesdays is Summerland, and same, we have 20 in that group, and then 20 in Vernon on Fridays. So JD and I split up, and then we have a second teacher, sometimes even a third, depending on the needs of the kids and the variety of activities that we're doing. And then we have one other program that is once a month, and this is open to anybody. It's not an application process or anything. It's just a simple registration, kind of first come, first serve. Anybody in the public can join, and that's just a once a month outdoor excursion.
Of all ages?
Yeah, we say, around 5 to 15, but we're really, really open about ages, and lots of people ask us, like, what grades do you teach? But we've really dropped the grade labeling system, and we just teach to the child. So as long as the kid can hack the day, can be outside all day, whether in whatever weather we're having, and can come, like can show up, then we say yeah. And for our young ones, as long as they're completely toilet trained and again can like physically do the challenge of the day, then we're open. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. Wow. So when did this start? Like, how long has it taken for this evolution to take place?
Well, like a lot of people, I'm finding it happened in 2020, right in the smack dab in the middle of COVID. And it was an opportunity that was presented to us because of it. And so in many ways it was a blessing.
It shook our tree
in disguise and allowed us the space and time to consider what we wanted as a family and what we wanted as, a future for our son. JD's background is in the past is in chefing and cooking and in the whole service industry.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we considered quite heavily opening a restaurant, but we have friends who have kids who have restaurants, and the kids don't get to be a part of it, especially when they're young, and how much of that is like a genuine boost in their lifestyle. It just didn't seem as
well. And if part of your consideration from your background as being in the education system was your kids over here while you're over here.
Exactly.
Usually restaurant life is not like a work-life balance thing where you get to have all of the things in one place. Unless you're running like a really small, conventional, like a mom and pop shop type thing. And then, yeah, you always see the kids in there. They're at the front till while mom and pop are in the back cooking. But I don't think you guys would be doing a small time adventure if that's what you're investing your whole family into.
Yeah, exactly. So we wanted to start businesses that we could have him be a part of, but also enhance his life with. And so we think outside, it's obviously all about children. And so he's nestled into that quite nicely, but also with
and
the
nature and life and community and real reality. And so like, those are all things that we wanted to make sure that he had massive access to, right? And so, wasn't readily on tap for most of the.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so, did the Feathered Fletch Archery School evolve alongside of that, or was that a separate thing at a later time?
Well, actually, it was before. So before we moved to BC, we had started the Feathered Fletch in Saskatchewan. Then we moved when I was still on maternity leave and Tucker was only 6 months old. And so I wasn't really working. I was primarily running it at that point. And so I wasn't working. So we didn't just bring it. And then, a big move like that, it takes time to get settled and time to kind of adjust and find your tribe and figure stuff out. And so the first couple years we lived in Kelowna was literally just trying to find our feet and working opposite shifts so we didn't have to worry about childcare and that kind of stuff. So it wasn't until 2020 when everything was kind of shut down and slow that we started to consider it. And it was actually because of our rental landlord knew that we had archery in our background, and her kids were home all the time, bored, and wanted to learn archery. So she asked if I could teach them over Zoom. And
the kids that lived upstairs, they wanted to learn over Zoom?
No, she didn't live in our building. We rented.
I assume, like, my mind immediately saw like a rental suite under a house, and I'm like, that's extreme.
No, she lived on the other side of town, but
okay.
It was like, because she didn't really know where we stood, and she didn't want to like ask us to come over if we weren't into it, and so she's like, like we could just do it on Zoom, and I'm like, I could definitely talk to you guys about it and try to talk you through it. And so that eventually morphed into us going into her backyard and teaching her kids and her neighbors, all the neighbor kids. And then we're like, you know what, let's like open this back up and relaunch in Kelowna. And so we kind of launched both businesses at once, which is kind of insane, but
it wasn't hectic at all. It was
no, super casual. Just launched two businesses in the middle of a pandemic. Yeah, no big deal.
Right.
So Feathered Fletch is not just for kids. That expands more to the adult version as well, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. We originally started age, like basing it on age and having like, the 5 to 7 year old class and kind of like your typical sports league. And then we realized that there was a lot of families out there that had kids in multiple age categories that were having to come and stay for like 2 or 3 hours at a time.
Yeah.
And it's really an individual sport. And so we started to then say, all ages of kids. And then it just kind of morphed into, adults want to join? Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, they're sitting there anyways. Yeah.
Exactly.
She was a full family.
Yeah. So that's how we market it now, as like anybody at any point in their life, no matter what, We do typically say 5 and up, more for attention span than anything. We do allow 3 and 4-year-olds to shoot at our events.
Wow.
But alongside a parent, and mostly not because of capability, but because of attention span. So our events are typically way shorter, or kind of a drop in, come try it out kind of thing. So they shoot 3 arrows and then they go off and there's like a food truck or whatever, right? So Tucker learned when he was had just turned 2. And so he was learning to run and learning to shoot at the same time.
Hopefully not simultaneous. Yeah.
Two things, same time frames.
Yeah. So definitely there for any age, and it's kind of fun to have a multi-age thing, and it's actually like we do everything. Like our school that we're teaching, schooling is all multi-aged as well. And so that's like I was saying earlier about dropping the grade label. We have kids that are 4 learning alongside kids that are 15. And multi-age just brings such a nice, like, relaxed tone to everything. You're not, expected to keep up or to be at a certain level because you're a certain age. It just kind of mellows everything out, which is really, really nice, because archery is kind of a Zen sport, and it's nice to just feel like you can be you.
Yeah. So, okay, I have to ask the devil's advocate question in that. So when you say 4 to 15, is that just in the Feathered Fletch archery programs, or is that also in We Think Outside schooling programs?
So that is in the We Think Outside schooling programs. In the Feathered Fletch, typically we have 5 all the way up to adults shooting at the same time. Yeah.
So then my devil's advocate question is, when you have a 4-year-old and a 15-year-old learning in the same setting, those are 2 different language processing levels at that stage. So how does the education portion of that work when you have a discrepancy in people's ability to absorb or know certain things just based on literal experience and existence in the world?
Totally. Yeah. So we teach to the learner. And so some instruction is in a group setting, and we kind of meet them in the middle, where the older ones know that we're going to have to speak at a younger level to some degree. Some stuff gets grouped out. So we have groupings based on ability on whatever we're learning. And so the groupings change based on whatever we're doing. So we take the kids skiing and snowboarding. Those groups are different than, say, their literacy groups. And their literacy group could be and are different than their numeracy groups. And so it just it's based on where the kid is at. And so and on their experience and what they thrive at, what they're passionate about. And so we try our best to not label it as like the lesser group, but it's more like, okay, people that are still learning this or still need some practice at this. Okay, you guys are group A, you guys are going to go first. We're going to do this. So I, get them going, and then they're working on an assignment or doing a project. And then I check in with group B, who's at a different level. And then everyone's kind of going together. It
is a constant dance. Like everything has to be portioned out. The kids have their own kind of arcs that they're already working on, right? So they know the curricular point where they're at right now, and they can resume. They're in projects. They're doing, it's not as though everyone's sitting there being, it's waiting. Algebra time.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to do ABC equations, and some of the kids don't know their ABCs. It's all, your individual.
Well, and the cool thing is that all of these kids are experiencing this education in a fun and engaging way.
And they're outside, so they don't have to wait. Like if they're not learning right now, they're maybe out,
But because they're learning this in in a fun way. And because they are, we talk to them about educational values and what do you want with your life. They all want to learn. They all want to do these things. And they're stoked on it. Like they're excited. Like we did some numeracy assessments today, just getting back into, back to school, kind of, get back in the rhythm of things, trying to see where they're at after summer break. And literally they crowded me asking for their next one. Can I do the next one? Can I do the next one? Like they're stoked on it. And so
it's the difference between learning when you want to learn and being forced to learn, right?
Totally. Yeah. And it's so beautiful to see because they value it. They want to know more. They want to do better. And the nice thing about
you and not because somebody else in the class is there, it's because you're there. And
but
this
is your, Yeah. It's also with the multi-age, some of the younger ones or the ones that aren't at that level yet see what some of the older ones are doing or the freedoms they get because of what they're doing. And they strive for it. They're like, I want that. So what do I need to do to get that?
Yeah. That's very cool. That's very neat. And within the, maybe going towards the feathered Fletch side of things, you guys also teach about sustainability and ethical use of animals and tanning and anatomy study for best shots and stuff. So there's obviously an archery component to teaching in feathered Fletch, but you're also teaching about hunting ethics and all of that as well. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. So we do some mini bow hunting workshops where it's a little bit longer of a class and we take breaks from shooting to chat about anything that they might want to know about getting into bow hunting. Because it's such a intense sport or lifestyle.
Lifestyle. Yeah.
That it can seem really daunting where if you, first off, maybe you don't even know how to shoot a bow or you've never been hunting. Now you're trying to do both of it. Or you've been hunting and you can get to, 100 or 200 yards, but now closing that gap to get into 20 or 30 yards feels impossible, let alone, how do I make sure that I can make an ethical shot? A gun bone doesn't matter as much. And whereas it can change the entire outcome of an archery shot. So we try to host these as like mini workshops, super casual. They come in, they ask us questions. We bring gear and equipment so they can see it. They can look at things, they can try things. And it's funny because most people's questions aren't what you think they are. The majority people want to know, like, I don't know, what's the most that people ask?
I would say, what are the most common questions? Let's talk about this because this is a lot of our audience are people that are getting into hunting. It's the Entry Point Hunting podcast. So if somebody's at the entry point of wanting to use a bow and hunt, what are the most common questions you guys get?
So much of the time it's like, what gear do I need? As opposed to, like there's infinite options, right? And so people are like, do I hunt with a recurve or do I need to have a compound?
Yeah.
And
how much money do I need to spend?
Yeah.
Because it could go and go and go, right? And you never know, is this something that I need or are they telling me I need it because they want to sell it to me? And so it's nice to have those kind of open conversations about these are the things that you could or should have. And these are the things that are like extras that, after you're a good shot and you feel like you can make that shot, how you want to bow hunt, then, we can look into some of these.
One of the big questions is how do I get an animal this year? And it's like, well, you've just picked up a bow. Let's try to get some shots in before
let's try and get your fake turkey target first before we get a real one.
It's not my tags quite yet, but
and I think people often mistake the speed of the learning curve.
Well, and they see it on TV in that montage of like this guy's lost in the woods and now he's hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's a difficult, that's a difficult art. And
somehow he magically got a bow with perfect arrows too.
yeah. And really like nailing these deer at 30 yards that are galloping past. It's like,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Also finding authentic people to help you with those gear questions and getting into proper gear. I know a lot of people at like pro shops are amazing, and they really work with the new shooter, but some can tend to be super opinionated in their way of hunting or their way of shooting, and
they're brand specific.
Having enough knowledge before wanting to buy your own equipment is so important, so that you don't get duped into buying something that's a good fit for a different type of hunting, or a different body style, or a different capacity, like weight, right?
Yeah, like you fixed my bow when I was shooting ridiculous amounts of weight that I didn't need to be. And suddenly my shooting got a lot more accurate.
Yeah, right.
It's weird, right?
and I was actually just going to say that, forgetting that I had done that. But yeah, lots of people think that maximum weight is the key, and it's so not. Like,
you got these people pulling a 100-pound bow, and a 50-pound draw will go through any animal on the continent.
They
you're not needing to be, Schwarzenegger to bow hunt.
You need to hit at least your legal, your legal weight draw.
Well, exactly. And that's what I was going to say, is that they have that in most provinces and countries, even, that 40-pound weight limit. Now, some people are going to kinetic energy, which I think is really smart, because you can pull 40 pounds and be shooting an arrow that's not going to get you as much penetration as in kinetic energy as a lower poundage bow with a different arrow. And so the problem, though, is how do conservation officers calculate that in the field, right? With the poundage weight limit, they can just bring a bow scale, or have any real luggage scale, as long as it goes up high enough, can work. But as long as you're there, I mean, the research has been done, and that's for a reason. It's ethical in most, as long as you have a good shot, right?
Yeah. In most scenarios, it will do the trick.
Yeah. One of the things from last question that we didn't really touch on is like any of our programs, we're teaching the person where they're at. So some of their questions are like super, super beginning, like, where do I go to shoot when I'm not with you guys? Or like, what kind of camo do you use? And it's just like, well, shooting on the daily, you gotta get to the shot and then figure out when you're going to hunt and what area you're going to hunt, because your camo changes and your season changes. Like if you're going for spring bear versus late season mule deer, you're kind of,
which is why these mini sessions are so nice, because while they're practicing and getting coached for archery, they can come up with these questions that they thought of from the week prior. And so we kind of run these the same as any other lesson or league, where they come at the same time on the same day of the week for an hour and a half or 2 hours. So it's kind of nice, because they can progress, and then their questions progress too.
And where do you guys shoot? Like, do you have a range that you're using, or are we like backyard in it?
No. So we rent different fields. So we typically are outside as much as we can. We don't run a lot of programs in the summer because we think outside is kind of closed for the summer. We try to get away as a family in the summer, but for spring and fall, we shoot outside. And then in the winter, we bring it inside. And so we're finding community spaces to rent, and big long fields are kind of the best, but it's a nice opportunity, because the way our insurance works, we can get that space as an insured shooting space where it typically wouldn't be. And then bring it closer into the cities where people want to be, or where, kids can get after school or that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should say that it's just not okay or legal to be shooting in like soccer fields or school grounds.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't
like
do that.
Yeah. Some people have like come and done a child lesson with their kid, and then they go off, and we've heard now that they're like, oh, they were at the school the other day. I was like, what? Like,
yeah, the playground.
We taught your 5-year-old to shoot. You're not capable of like running a range at a school grounds. That's terrifying.
Yeah. Just not a great idea in public spaces. Yeah. You had mentioned bringing the shooting indoors in the winter, which brings me to a question, because this is the Entry Point Hunting podcast. And if people are listening to this and they are new to archery or bow hunting, and they're not familiar with some of the basic fundamentals, can you shoot outside in wintertime? Is that okay for your bow? Is there such thing as too cold? Because I mean, obviously people hunt all throughout hunting season with their bows. But that's a question that I've had. Is there too cold to shoot?
No, not at all. It comes down to enjoyment. And if they're going to, especially if there are some younger kids or kids that are not used to being outside for longer periods, their fingers get sore and cold because the string is on their fingers. We're teaching predominantly recurve to start, unless they bring their own compound with a release, then they're shooting with their fingers. And so the tension between the fingers and the string in the cold can get quite uncomfortable. And so, just mainly keeping it fun, especially for kids who are like, I just want to try this out for the first time. We want it to be as much fun as possible. People who are wanting to practice for hunting should shoot outside in the winter, because your clothes are going to change the way where your string releases. You might catch a collar, you might catch something. If you're going to be, tree standing in some really colder temperatures, like we did in Saskatchewan, you're going to need something covering your face to stay warm enough. And that's going to change the way your anchor point feels. That's going to change the way your string touches your nose. And you add adrenaline and excitement of an animal behind the sight, and now everything feels crazy, and that's when you end up missing or making an unethical shot.
Yeah, definitely. With that said, a few questions that's leaning more towards the hunting aspect of bow hunting and archery. When you guys are teaching people and they're coming into the archery world, you said you're primarily teaching with a recurve for kids that are learning and trying. But if somebody says, hey, I want to learn to bow hunt, what are you guys starting them on, or what do you recommend people start on?
Yeah, we still recommend that you start on a recurve, because an instinctive style recurve. So no sights, shooting off the shelf, or just a little flipper rest, simply because form is so important. So if you're focusing on equipment, which you have to do in a compound situation, you don't have the time to invest in your form. And form is the basics, the basis of everything. When it comes down to making a good shot, you're not going to make a good shot even with different equipment if your form isn't there. So we teach everybody to start instinctive, traditional archery.
So it sets a platform that hunting is going to be stressful and exciting and really varied every time. You're never going to get a range shot in a hunting situation. So if you don't have those fundamentals, then you are in a grab bag for making a good shot, right? So if you know your form, then you get your equipment and then you make your shots.
So once you're comfortable,
puts you in a way different.
Once you're comfortable with a traditional set up and your form is consistent, that's the kind of the point where I would recommend moving into the bow that you're hoping to use for whatever it is that you're heading towards. So if that's bow hunting, then okay, what kind of bow hunting do you want to do? Do you want to hunt traditional? Because that's super cool. That's amazing.
And super hard.
So hard, right? Or do you want to do, tree standing? Do you want to do ground blind? Are you a mover? Do you want to do spot and stalk or still hunting or alpine stuff? What do you want? And so this is like, they have this time where they're learning the sport, learning their form, hopefully over a few months before they're thinking about equipment yet, where they can start to put these questions in their mind. And I try to ask this right away, especially if I know that that's where they're headed, so that I help them choose a bow that's going to be best suited. Because if you're walking all day up a mountain, you're going to want something that's super light. You're not going to want a beast of a bow. And if you're in a ground blind and you're somebody who's really tall or big like JD, you're already filling that space. If you have a really long bow, that's not going to work well. Yeah. Right. So
my A to A, the axle to axle on my chosen compound is the same size as Victoria's. So I picked one that would be as small as possible, but still reach my draw limit, so that it would give me that versatility. But without having tried bows in advance and knowing what we were going to be doing, that choice is super hard to anticipate. I wouldn't have been able to be like, hey, maybe a small bow.
And so then at that point, if they're able to, if they're an adult and they're able to, I would say to, save up or invest in the bow you want. Bows can be like cars where you could get a new one every year. Anytime there's a new model, let's go get a new one. But they can also be like cars where it's still good for however
for a long time. Yeah. Until the muffler starts falling off.
Yeah.
So if you guys are recommending that people start with recurve, even if they eventually plan to hunt with a compound bow, I guess the question I have around that is, the form that you talked about, very important for becoming consistent and having repetition and ability to have good shot placement. But the form for shooting a recurve and a compound are very different from my limited experience. So what is it that you're ingraining when you start with a recurve that's then going to be transferable to a compound?
It's really not that different. All of your fundamentals are the same. So you need to find an anchor. You need to hold the bow up before you start drawing. You need to smooth draw back. You need to have your feet set. You need to have your hips set. You need to have your shoulders set. You need to breathe into it. So all of that stuff, the only thing that's going to change if you go from a compound or from a recurve to a compound is your anchor point if you choose a release. And even that doesn't necessarily have to change. It depends on the size of your release and how long it is and where you've chosen to anchor. So my anchor point between my recurve bow and my compound bow are a little bit different, but the fundamentals of finding that anchor point, my anchor point of the center of my nose, that all is the same. All of that stays the same.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And if somebody is new to archery and bow hunting, what's a fundamental thing that you think that they should know above all else, like the key piece of advice that you would give them? I know there's lots, but like the first thing that comes to your mind, if somebody says, hey, I want to start bow hunting, what do you tell them?
Be able to shoot the bow that you choose at least 10 times without fatiguing.
10?
Wow, 30.
I would say 30.
But like, you get so many of these people that would be able to pull their bow 3 to 5 times on a good day, and then they put it down and have a rest. But on a cold day where your muscles, you've been sitting or you've been hiking or whatever, and now it's time to make that shot, and you're like, girl, and you've lost that creature.
And so I think like backing that up just a little bit, I would say that the key thing is practice and consistent practice. Like it can get to the point like riding a bike, after you've done it for
muscle memory,
many, many, many years.
Yeah.
So
or many, many, many times. It doesn't necessarily have to be years. I know Kevin Toy, who's been on the show, he told me he shoots like 75 or 100 arrows or something every single day. So you can shorten your years down if you're going to do dedicated practice.
That's intense. But I mean, you can get to the point where, maybe you haven't shot in a few months or maybe even a year, and you pull your equipment back out. And if you have the experience, you can go right back into it. But that doesn't happen quickly, and that doesn't happen right away. And so you need to invest the time to practice, especially if you're new to shooting and to bow hunting. Yeah. So that would be my biggest, that would be my biggest key, is just if you're a busy person and you don't think that you can invest shooting more than once a week, then don't anticipate hunting that year, right? Yeah. Give yourself a couple years to get to the point of knowing it, knowing yourself, knowing your equipment, and failing a bunch of times so that you can succeed, and that you can know that exactly, at a target, so that you can know what to do, or you know what fail feels like. So you can come down instead of making that shot when it's on an animal. Yeah. And we're saying that because it's not about, you can't, because, it's not about the shooter. It's about the target animal that they are trying to aim on. If you're not practicing at least once a week, you don't have probably an ethical shot. You don't have consistency or enough reps in to know for sure that you are going to make a clean and ethical shot. Yeah, exactly. And you don't have the muscle memory made yet to be able to, kind of rotely do your form. Whereas somebody who's had, decades of archery experience could possibly do that. Still isn't the best. You still should be able to go out and shoot. But to get your steps under stress is difficult. Totally. To get all your steps, in a range situation is challenging for most people. So, to get all your steps while you're looking at, what you've been waiting for. Yeah. Yeah. So, well, an exercise that a girlfriend and I do when we're practicing both with rifle and with bows is you have your target at one end. And I mean, we don't necessarily practice at the range. We're out in like a wilderness setting. So put your target somewhere where you can see it, and then you back up, 30 to 100 yards, depending on if you're shooting bow or rifle. And then you go for a jog and come back and then try and shoot. So it simulates that same, like that breathing, the intensity. It's not obviously the same necessarily adrenaline rush from a chemical perspective of what's happening in your body when you finally see this animal that you've been hunting for days and days and weeks, but it's the same, like calming your breathing, your heart is pumping, you feel jacked up at that moment. So it's the closest we've been able to get to simulating that in the moment. Okay, how do you calm yourself to make this clear and good shot? I like it. That's good. Yeah, it's a good exercise. Something you mentioned before and kind of ties back into the questions people ask. And you were saying about how, sustainability and the ethics of using what you kill and stuff. Yeah. So that's a huge proponent for us too, is just, making sure that you're not taking an animal that you're not going to use. And something that we do it's kind of a fun tie-in between the Feathered Fletch and We Think Outside is the use of animals. And so we teach the archery, and then we go, out hunting on our own and harvest an animal. Then we take all of those pieces back to our classroom at We Think Outside, and they help us tan the hide and, do things with the bones and butcher it up. And so I think that's one of the biggest questions is what do you do after you get one? And that's something that a lot of people don't know. And that's one of the questions they're asking right away, which is I don't know, cute. It's kind of cute. It's like
you're putting the cart before the deer.
You're getting it already, which is awesome. You see yourself succeeding, which is great. And it's kind of also an intense thing. What do I do? And making sure that you have some knowledge on that before going out and making that kill, because now it's dark.
And you're calling for help.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. In your guys' experience with teaching both youth and adults throughout the years, and your own experiences, I mean, you guys didn't come into this as like a hobby that you picked up. You guys have been bow hunting in your own lifetimes. Is there a point where you think there is mastery of it? Like, I know, JD, you had said, somewhere between 10 to 30 reps of shooting your bow consistently to say, okay, you're confident to go out and actually hunt. But is there a point where you feel like you reach mastery in it?
I don't think so. I think that if you, I mean, yes and no. There's a confidence. When I'm going out hunting, I know what I'm doing. I'm hopeful of getting an animal, and if I get in within range, I'm fairly confident I'm going to make that shot. But I think that if you see it as mastery, then you've quit learning. You've quit being open to what could be, or what could I do differently, or what can I learn?
Yeah, lifelong learners over here. So we'd have a hard time saying that it's checked.
Yeah, I was curious. I don't think you can truly have mastery over anything, but I was curious what your guys' answer would be.
Yeah.
Victoria's dad is like, he's a retired man, and he puts in the time, and he gets himself set up, and he is like meticulous and has used the equipment and used the techniques religiously. And he would definitely say he's not a master of it, I would say. And I would say he's one of the closer people that I've met, for sure.
Yeah.
I think too that there's so much to know and so much to learn.
And species specific, region specific.
Whether it's about the animals, or whether it's about the equipment, or about new equipment or new technology, there's always something to learn. And I think that with that knowledge brings a different kind of confidence. It's not just like, okay, I can do this now. It's like, I understand a broader range. Like, for example, I grew up knowing that you only take an animal broadside. You wait for that front foot to move forward, so the shoulder's out of the way, and there's that sweet spot, that one sweet spot on the side, broadside shot only. Well, then I started looking into anatomy and looking at, well, what does the bone structure of a whitetail look like? And the more I started looking into it, the more I started to feel like there was an opportunity for a frontal shot. And I looked into it, and I researched it, and I felt super confident. And then on the last day of the season, a few years ago, I was in Saskatchewan. It was super cold. And
as it is,
in like December
in Saskatchewan.
And it was like 3 minutes till legal light. And legal light is
30 minutes past.
Yeah, 30 minutes past in Saskatchewan. So I could still
dark.
Yeah. It's an hour here.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Anyway, this huge whitetail came out and stood facing me at 18 yards. And I literally had 2 minutes before it was going to be too dark. And I had studied it. And so I was like, you know what? I feel confident. And I took that shot. And even though I'm a small person with a short draw and not a crazy heavy bow, I buried my arrow past its fletching. And that deer, it went the shortest distance I've ever had a deer go after a shot. And it was dead on its feet. It maybe took 10 steps. It was incredible, but I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have got that deer if I hadn't have studied it, if I hadn't have been interested in learning more. And if I had stopped at figuring I had mastered the, broadside shot or quartering away.
I'm quartering away now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So no, it's really interesting to continue to learn and find out things. And if you have an open mindset, then I think it's really unending what you can continue to learn about archery or about bow hunting.
Yeah.
I love that. I love the perpetual learning mindset. And like you said, taking that vested interest in not just going with what had been told to you, so that this is how you do it. It's always been done this way. And then saying, why? Is there another way? And doing some research. And if you found out, broadside is the only way you can shoot it, great. Then but you had the inkling to look into that further and see, there is a frontal shot. Is it way harder? Probably. It's a much narrower space that you're targeting. But it resulted in a harvest. So that's amazing.
It's not always what's on the 3D targets either. The rings on your 3Ds are. Victoria did a gator down in Florida, and they have a kill spot the size of a nickel, but it's at the base of the skull. So that's your only entry point for. Yeah. So,
wow.
You hunt with a bow.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That is good precision archery right there. What is exciting for you guys on the horizon in 2024? What's coming up for either business, company, school that you guys run, or even in your own lives of archery and bow hunting and what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, we just came back from a really fun retreat.
Corporate.
Kind of it was like a getaway challenge thing put on by Jack Link's Jerky, which was really, really fun. And so
Jack Link's Jerky, what is that? This is an unpaid promo. What is it?
Jerky.
Beef jerky.
Beef jerky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we had been sought out by a company to come and be one of the events at this getaway for these contest winners. And so we enjoyed it quite a lot, and we thought that this is something that we need to pursue more often. And so we're kind of working towards more of these kind of fun workshops, retreats, corporate events to, team building and community building. So that's kind of what's on the horizon for the Feathered Fletch in the next little while. We're going to kind of put some effort into pursuing that kind of stuff. And
we're also broadening the adult portion of the We Think Outside Foundation. So we'll be tapping into a little bit more of the getting adults back outside and comfortable in the wilderness.
Yeah, and teaching families how to do these things outdoors so that they can do it in their spare time and stuff. So bushcrafting classes and survival classes, and even just basic camping classes weekends.
That's amazing. I love all of that. So we will chat more offline about how we can collaborate through backcountry hunters and anglers, and just my own passion for people getting all of those bits of education into their lives.
Definitely.
Sweet.
Yeah. We have a closing tradition on this podcast where I'm going to ask you guys some rapid fire questions that you can answer with 1 or 2 words of your discretion. So first rapid fire question: what is the first animal each of you have ever harvested?
Whitetail.
That was your first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, I guess a gopher. I shot a gopher when I was like 7.
Yeah, you're from Saskatchewan for sure. Everyone out here, their first animal is a grouse, and you're from Saskatchewan, so it's a gopher.
Yeah,
that's so funny.
Yes, there were some gophers. It's hard to call that harvesting.
I did eat it. No, I did eat it.
Okay, that's a true harvest then. What's your favorite hunting resource, whether that's a podcast, book, forum, outside of your own school?
Oh,
Her dad.
Her dad. Not bad. Mentors are true.
Word of mouth and friends, like chatting, human interaction.
Yeah. Peers.
Love it.
Really big.
Yes. Your favorite hunting snack?
Ooh.
Can't
Should
say
we say
turkey now.
Jacqueline's turkey?
Jacqueline's turkey coming soon to this podcast.
Oh, I don't know.
Something that doesn't crinkle.
Yeah, something quiet.
Yeah. You don't think about this?
Pretty high.
Yeah, you don't think about the crinkle thing until you're out in the woods and you crinkle. And I remember the first time I went hunting with somebody else and they had pre-unwrapped their protein bar and anything else that could crinkle. And I went, it's not genius. Like anybody should be able to think of that. But when I saw it, I was like, mind blown. Wow. Why have I never thought of this? And obviously this is why all the animals are gone away from me.
we do quiet snacks for Tucker, where he unwraps like 3 chocolate bars and he can pour it into like a really quiet, soft bag.
Yes. Yeah. Perfect. Double socks or one layer?
One layer.
Oh, okay. One good layer of sock. Got it.
Layer of socks, yeah.
What's your go-to drink in the woods?
Water or beer.
Yeah.
Water before and beer after.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Coffee and then beer.
Coffee and then water and then beer, probably in that order. Yeah.
I skipped the water.
She does not drink water well.
Okay. What's the one absolute essential item that you have to have on every hunt or anytime you go into the woods?
Knife.
My bow.
Yeah. Both great answers. Between the two of you, you'll be set. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show today and sharing a bit about what you do and the amazing things that you offer to our community that is fortunate to have you guys here. Are there any last comments or things that we didn't touch on that you would like people to know about?
I don't think so.
No, we're always happy to answer questions.
It's a nice thing if you can get into this with your kids. You're not going to be as successful, but if you're calculating success by harvesting, but just being out there with them is so amazing. And if you're able to kind of step back from the thinking that success means I have to harvest something, and just being out there with them and with the chance that you do get something with them, it's incredible.
If you're learning, especially, why not learn with them and have them get that?
So bring them and teach them with you and practice together and
demystify it.
Yeah. It's a great bonding thing, and it's great to see families out there with their kids.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great note to end on. And I will put your guys' contact information in the comments down below so that if people want to reach out and have questions about their kid learning, them learning, other opportunities that you guys offer, such as these corporate retreats and parties and all that kind of stuff, people will be able to get in touch. So thank you guys again for coming on today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in today to watch or listen, and make sure to hit that like or subscribe button to follow along wherever you get your podcasts. If you have any questions, comments, or reviews, please drop them down below. I will read them and I will get back to you. Or you can reach me at questions@entrypointhunting.com. If you know an expert or someone who offers great advice or is just growing rapidly in the field of hunting, angling, or conservation, please send them my way. I would love to reach out and connect with them. And until next time, friends, stay hungry.